And if you need to, talk to anybody or you talk or whatever, you could just flip it around like that at any point if you need to. But all right, I'm gonna start going over a few things. Okay, I'm going to get started on some announcements, and then Julie will be taking over, and then we will go into our Chris Ann Hall. Don't forget, Chris Ann Hall will be here February 18th, so our weekly meeting will be on a Thursday. It'll be posted, and we're going to do sign-ups for that and make sure that that People's Rights make sure to get in, that we have enough room. We'll have room for about 200, and then the general public would be welcome. So we will do a registration sign up. No, it's not contact tracing. You can use a fake name. Just put a name down if you're with People's Rights so that you can make sure to get a seat for that. That'll be February 18th. And then, so first, welcome. Thank you guys all for coming. I was driving here tonight and I was thinking, do these meetings matter? Do they matter? Like what we're doing, does it matter? Is this important? Do we keep doing this? Okay. Those thoughts that go through your mind where you think, am I doing this for me?
We keep coming. We keep coming.
You guys keep coming.
And there's a lot of new faces, so.
That's right. Okay, I'm Kelly. Thank you guys for being here. We're considered Area 4. Yes, hello. More chairs. Let's get some more chairs in the back. And there's some seats up here up on the side. We'll keep rearranging as we need. And just make room. More bodies means more heat. All right, you guys, we survived Inauguration Day. Yay! Did anybody else have a hard time sleeping last night? Yeah. I don't even care about who's in office, and I was pretty anxious last night, just to be totally honest. And I don't know why. Everything happened the way I thought it would happen, but you never know. So I'm going to go over a couple things while Julie gets set up. Should I stand so you guys can see? Does it matter? Do you want me to stand up? Okay, I'll stand up. Okay, so I put together some lists of groups that we talked about last week, made a sheet, and started thinking, what will these groups look like? How are we going to get stuff up and going? So we'll talk about that in just a minute. Let's see. There's kind of a lot to go over. So what we're going to start doing in our weekly meetings is every week, somebody different, based on these groups that we're forming here, will be leading the first 45 minutes. And then, so we'll do announcements, and then for those of you wanting to know when to come, if you're just wanting to come to a certain part, announcements, talk about needs in the community, and then somebody else, tonight Julie's going to be doing it as a part of our food network. She's going to be getting us going with what to plant right now in your house and how to make the best base soil. So I'm going to challenge everybody in here to go home and do this. Take a bucket, make this base soil, and put 10 seeds in a bedroom and get them going right now. Because what we're all experiencing right now with what's going on in the country is that, one, we're just incredibly dependent people. We're very dependent on our government. People don't know where food comes from. They don't know how to grow their own food. They don't know how to raise their own milk. They don't know how to be self-sustainable. And what that does is it makes you enslaved to whoever knows how to do those things. And so our goal, we've been meeting all year doing all kinds of different things, but it's just time to get educated. It's time. We've all been studying the Constitution and going and protesting and learning about our rights. But now let's take it to the next step. So we put this list together. We copied this off of things that they're doing in Oregon. So we have a communications group that we're putting together. Communications group is going to help us with a new web design. We have the main national page, where we have a page that will be just for Washington. So you'll be able to go to peoplesrightswashington.org, and you'll be able to click on your area and get in touch with all these people who are going to be heading up all these different groups. So if you say, I want to do a garden, but I need help, you'll go to peoplesrightswashington.org, and you'll click on our area, and you'll get all Julie's information and see the information that she's taught in the past, and be able to connect. The goal of our group is not just to stand up here and bark at you guys, though I do that pretty well, right, Vicki? The goal is to get people involved and learning and connecting in their communities. So we're going to put together a communications group. If you want to be a part of any of these, we still need a handful of people helping. So after we're done, if you'll come up and you'll put your name. I got a few names last week, but said, put me where you need me. I don't have brain cells to figure out what you're good at. I can't do that. You have to tell me what you're passionate about, what you're good at. Are you good online? Are you good with sound stuff? Are you good printing flyers? Are you good teaching a class on safety or on gardening? Tell me what you're good at. So communications, we could use a little more help on that. We're going to be building this web design. It's going to be on our own server, so we can't get taken down. Involved in that is going to be the Telegram pages. So if you're not on Telegram, get on Telegram. I need people who can add people to the groups, who can vet them and make sure they truly live in that community of the group that they're trying to add. All this takes so much time throughout the week, and so I really need some help. Making sure that people are getting questions answered within those groups, making sure the groups are staying on track. How many of you have been on Telegram, or any other group for that matter, and it says at the top, sheriff's community, and you go in and it's just a junk dumping ground for all of the news, and you go, oh, I thought I was learning about the sheriff's roles, or it takes admins in there to be cleaning those out, to be deleting things, to be reminding people, hey guys, this group is for this purpose. We just created one Telegram group for Clark County only. So we had one that was just for the whole state, and it's got hundreds of people and nonstop chatter, which is great. I want people to have a place just to connect. But the Clark County group is going to be for only those living in Clark County. There's a Cowlitz group, there's a Skamania group, and there is a Klickitat County, and there wasn't one for Clark, so we converted our Clark to the state one. So if you want to join that, just come up and put your name and let us know, and we'll put your throw in that. Now it's going to be small. It's going to be talking about the meetings, talking about any group activities we have going on this week. Just community needs. Somebody needs a car. Somebody else needs help chopping up firewood. It's just a community group so we can connect. So that's communications. Then we have the ham radio. Right now that's going to be Joe Wakefield is helping us with the ham radio, and Matt out in Klickitat. But we need more people helping us with that. So if you have your license and you want to be a go-to person for people's rights, please come and sign up your name. And with the ham radio stuff, we are starting a weekly net. The nationwide frequency is 146420, and you can get that off of peoplesrights.org. So every Friday, 8 p.m., we're going to be on, just talking to see who can hear us. We did it the other day, and where we were at in Clark and Camas, we were able to communicate clear as day with Clackamas, and also out to La Center. Yes. Yeah, 146420. 146.1420. So that's just a standard frequency that we're trying to see without using repeaters who we can communicate with. And you have to check in each week and listen. And then you can jump in the Clark County chat and say, I can't hear you guys. Or I can hear you, but why can't you hear me? And it's overwhelming. Okay, I'm barely scratching the surface, but just doing this and hitting in the buttons and seeing how clear it is. Oh, let's change this antenna. Oh, I'm gonna go outside. Oh, I stood up on my car and it works really good. That tells you in an emergency, get up on your car. You don't want in an emergency to have to do this dance and run around your property to find out where you have good signal. So
and when are you going to do that?
We're Friday at 8 p.m. every week. Friday at 8 p.m. every week. It'll be about 15 minutes. We'll just basically do a roll call. If you have your license, you can respond. If not, you're just going to be commenting in the Telegram chat saying, yes, I can hear you guys really clear, or no, it's really bad. I can only barely hear. Do you have a recommendation on a better antenna I should get? The antennas are not a lot of money. And so you can spend $20 or $30 and be able to all this over here really well. And then people who are getting more serious, you can get antennas up on your house, and start to get more serious if you want. So that's going to be a group, the ham group. They'll be communicating weekly. And on the website, there will be a link to the ham group here for Clark County. So as people get their license, or they say, I want to know how do I get my license? We'll be able to go there and communicate with the individuals who have agreed to head right now we're putting together, I reached out to 5 or 6 instructors, and I'm trying to find an instructor that will do the course for us and then end it with the test right then and there. So in the fee that we pay them, we will leave with the course, understanding, and the license. So I'm working on, there's a few tests coming up in Battleground in the beginning of February, but they're tests only. And I think it would really help us all to go through the course together. So that's what I'm working on today. Toastmasters. So Patrick is going to be heading up Toastmasters for us. That's going to be fun. Each of these groups, they're going to be teaching every week. So one week it will be the people who said, I'll help with ham, radio, or food, or Toastmasters. And the goal of this is that we would develop other leaders within our community. Because when you take an area you're passionate about and you start teaching it, you start learning it better yourself, you learn how to talk in front of people. I used to hate to talk in front of people. Like, I would want to pee my pants talking in front of people. It was just so terrifying to me. And so we're trying to raise up leaders, and then people will start crossing over and teaching other things, and all of a sudden we have a whole community of teachers instead of followers. Because that's our goal as Americans, right? That we would all be followers, or teachers instead of followers. Do you guys want some more chairs over there? Are you sure? So Toastmasters is basically teaching people how to communicate. Yeah, you want to come up and quickly say what it is?
Okay, so Toastmasters is a organization.
Can we take the mic so
that-
they can hear online?
Toastmasters is an organization that helps people develop their communication and leadership skills. It's an international organization. We have up here in Washington, Southwest Washington, about 19 clubs up in this area. It's based on having clubs and people working on different communication skills constantly. Okay? So we'll be setting this up. I'll explain to you a little more about what it is. And there is a cost in it. It's like $20 for people that have never ever been in Toastmasters. There's a $20 initial fee. However, that's very little when you look at the kind of education you can get out of this program. So for about $100 a year, you're getting a tremendous amount of education on how to speak, how to interact with people. And with what we're doing here, it's going to be very important that you understand and learn how to interact with particularly police, other people in conflict situations, and learn how to articulate yourself in an appropriate way to get the kind of results that you're looking for, positive results. Right? You've seen a lot of things on TV. People do not understand how to interact, and the kind of results they're getting are not the kind of results we want. So this is education. And we're going to set this up. There's a structure to it. I'll be working with everybody to put it all together and get you going. What we'll do also is be working with all of you to do role play things, say like a traffic stop or interacting with a cop, or like this situation you had a couple of weeks ago at a hospital. So we can set this up and set up a scenario and let you interact with each other and practice what to say, how to say it, and how to be effective with it. So this is very important to what you're going to be getting involved in, right? So we're going to be doing quite a bit to get it all organized and rolled.
Yeah, so it'll be a fun night too. It'll be a fun night for us. We'll be able to do it here at this group. We'll probably just take up one night every however often.
Once a month
Once
you
a
could do
month
it.
or something of our weekly meetings and do it. Yes, Vicki. No, just for people's rights, just for our
we would
group.
do this just for this
It'll
group.
be very focused on what we're doing.
Yes.
So the things, the topics, and we've talked before about role playing, and people have asked before, can we do
Yeah.
that? And I didn't have the skills to host that, but now we have them within our groups. I think it'll be fun. It'll be really good for us. And we'll go through things like the mask wearing and all of that. You know, when you get confronted and somebody's yelling at you over a mask or whatnot, I think it'll be good. Could we maybe grab a couple more chairs for the back? Could somebody grab like 3 at the back? 3 or 4?
You know, there's
Okay, do you want them right where you're standing? You can just line them up right there. or up here by the fireplace too. So Prayer Warriors, Kathleen Palmer is going to be heading that up. The Food Network is going to be three groups: canning and preservation, gardening, and foraging. So tonight we're going to be going over the gardening, basics of gardening with Julie. And then we have Medical Freedom. Bob Reynolds is going to be heading that up. Our mask force will be Vicki and Jolene. Constitutional Studies, nobody signed up for all of them, let's do that. First responders will be good. Joe Wakefield's going to help us with that. And he's going to come and do a class for us in like 2 weeks where we'll start it out like we are tonight with Julie. But Joe will be going over in riot situations. What's some gear you should have if you end up in a place they call a riot? Or just what's some basic safety items you can have out in public if you're out shopping at night. And there's so many tools out there. He has so many of them. He's been helping me with different things like gun straps. You know, he's like, just things I don't think about, depending on what you have on your leg versus having it on your belt. And just really helpful things so you don't go out and waste money. Also, I had bear mace he told me to get, but the bear spray, he said you need to get the bear, or the gel versus the spray. And just little things where, you know, it's $1 difference. It's not a big deal, but you don't ever use it, and you're not meant, you know, trained that way. You don't even think about it. So that'll be good. If you want to be a part of any of these, again, please come and sign up, and you can help rotate through teaching these classes. Homeschool is going to be Katie. She's going to head that up and get our moms connected. Prepping, we're going to have Keith Miller. He's going to be prepping. Is Keith here? Yes, he's pretty good. So we've got Wendy Ivy, who's going to help us on food prepping. Prepping will be 2 different groups. Food prepping, but then we also have supplies. I didn't know which area you were when you wrote down prepping, but there's items we need to have, and then there's also food. Like, how do you know what you need in your cupboard? And that's something Wendy's got down, and so she's going to help come up and do a class in a couple weeks for us on that. And hopefully break it down so that when you're overwhelmed and you're saying, I don't remember what they said, you can call that person directly and say, I'm online, I'm on a website. I'm sitting Amazon because I live on Amazon. Don't shoot me, guys. When you're on a site and you're going to order something, you know, you can be like, I'm going to call Keith real quick. Okay, so then last is, if you haven't familiarized yourself with peoplesrights.org, please do that. There are so many resources at peoplesrights.org, and the other thing that we're about to implement on there, we just added a tool called Field Assistance. We have area assistants, and that's who you call in a crisis, and they can send a text out. But that's a crisis, and not many people have those and have that need. Field assistants are going to basically be everybody I just named for our area, and it will say field assistant, it'll have Keith's name, and it will say prepping and his phone number. So you can log on right now to peoplesrights.org, plug in your cell phone number to log in if you don't have a password saved. And all of our phone numbers are right there. You don't have to think when people go, who do I call? Or I have questions about what Julie just presented. Julie's phone number will be listed there as a field assistant, and it will say food prep. And so you're shopping and you want some help, and you go, who do I call? Go to peoplesrights.org, log in. On the right-hand column, it'll have everybody's in your area assistants, and then the field assistants with their specialty, so that you can call them directly. And again, this is just to continue connecting neighbors with each other. So peoplesrights.org, please, please, please use it. And mess around on it. Lots of information. What is People's Rights? What is the agenda and goal? Is all on there. And then last, I just want to do a quick update. A quick update on the 3 businesses we've been supporting. Farm Boy is in contempt of court. So they have a $46,000 fine right now that the court is holding up. And they were just increased on Tuesday to $2,000 a day as long as they stay open. As of right now, they are holding firm, but they are talking about opening windows. I think there's somebody coming today to maybe swap out windows and see if they could play that whole game with open air, whatever. Each person has to decide for themselves how far they can stand and how much they can handle, because they're going against a giant right now. It's got to be completely overwhelming. But as of now, they are still standing.
I just want to say that there was victory for Grace Community Church down in Southern California. They've been battling from staying open. They were hit like over and over.
Yes.
2 court dates got canceled because the judge said, I don't want this in my
That's John MacArthur,
John
right?
MacArthur,
Yep.
Yeah, just heard that last
Yep.
week.
People need to take a stand. They need to be willing to take a stand. Do you need chairs back there? Michelle, you want a chair? Okay, there's 3 here on the side too, if you guys want to come and sit. Spiffies, as of now, I know their attorney, God bless their attorney, he posted on his page that their restraining order was canceled and that it was a celebration. It wasn't a celebration, it was canceled because they closed. So, like, come on, let's just say what it is, right? So they haven't opened in 2 weeks, so the judge said the restraining order is null and void. I don't need a restraining order on you to work when you're not working. So they dismissed the restraining order, but their fines are still in place. Their fines will likely be dismissed if they stay closed. And if they open, it will be outdoor dining or opening windows right now. And that's not the manager's, that's the owner's choice. And so the managers have done everything they can to stand, and they've been coming speaking at all the events. And they've, been very courageous. But as of right now, the restraining order was dropped because they closed. So it wasn't because they won, it was because they closed. Stuckey's is still holding firm. Stuckey's is out in Cowlitz County. You guys could be there tomorrow morning. I know it's early. This is what it looks like to be community though, is showing up for each other. Because when it's you, you're going to say, I hope people will show up at my house now that these people just came. So Stuckey's out in Cowlitz County tomorrow, 8 a.m. Their hearing is at 8:30. And they're in this for the long haul. Glenda said, I've always wondered what it'd be like to go to jail. So they're not closing. They're going to stay open. And as of now, there's some games being played because they're making their employees wear masks and they're doing every other table. So don't get me wrong. As far as a constitutional standard goes, there's still games being played. But they're letting people come in and sit down. They're not doing the open window, open door garbage. So as of right now, they're still standing. So that's awesome. So if you come tomorrow, 8 a.m., and be with us, that would be great. Friday, 8 p.m., we'll be doing the net each week, and I'll post that somewhere. We have so many places to post right now. I'm a little lost on where we're posting everything.
Kelly, sorry, is Stuffy's at the restaurant or
I'm
the courthouse?
sorry, no, it's at the courthouse.
Courthouse.
Yep, it's at the courthouse. And then the very last thing is, I've been getting a lot of calls from people concerned. So we all survived inauguration. We're all here. Country didn't blow up. Nothing's, there were no mass arrests that we heard of. Next week, 3 days. Okay, 3 days. There's going to be arrests. Then March, they'll come. In the meantime, we're going to keep living life. But the biggest concern I've been hearing is people asking about food. They're restricting food. There's airlines, and you can't travel now without the COVID-19 vaccine. Holiday, the vacation rental, whatever place, say you can't travel on the planes, the vehicles, hotels without a vaccine. It's called Holiday. They book vacation rentals and stuff. You have to have your vaccine within 14 days or they won't allow you. So people are starting to do this. It's going to be a thing. People are getting nervous about food. You guys, you can get 3 or 4 chickens and you can have 3 or 4 eggs a day. You can find a neighbor with an acre. You get 1 goat. My Alpine gives me 1 gallon a day. We can't drink 1 gallon a day. I have 6 goats. So when they're all in milk, I'm dumping milk out. I'll put it on my feet for a conditioner. We make cheese, we make yogurt, my freezer's full. So you guys, when we start to think as independent people, then it's less scary when all of a sudden you go, oh, Kelly has some extra milk, and Julie's got some extra eggs, and wow, my neighbor over here's got a big garden going. Then you're not as scared about who's in office, and right? They're all fighting. So meeting with your neighbors, who likes to bake bread, who likes to do gardening. These are ways that we can stop being so nervous about, what are we going to do with our food supply. I know that I have a garden, and that I have milk for my goat, and I have eggs for my chicken, and we can butcher the chickens if we need to. I wouldn't butcher the goats, because they're no babies. But I do butcher the chickens. Turkeys are another easy thing. They're amazing layers, huge, beautiful eggs, and then you can also eat them. So, there's ways that we can become self-sustaining and not be so nervous about what's going on in the government. And I think it's time. It's time. These people get back to what our grandparents used to know how to do. Sow and grow and butcher. And we can do this summer. We'll do some butchering. I butchered tons of cows, and I need someone else to shoot it for me. But after that, I can run a chainsaw and turkeys and chickens, and once you learn how to do that, all of a sudden it's kind of empowering. You get on Craigslist and you start looking for free chickens or $10 chicken. You're like, that's a nice looking chicken. And then you process it just to show your kids and to realize you can do it. Look, I just cooked a fresh dinner from food I just processed. Okay, if I can't go to Costco or Safeway, I can still find a chicken to process. So anyway, not that we want to have to do that, but we need to know how to do that. So, okay, with that, we're going to turn it over to Miss Julie, and then we'll go into our constitution. Oh, one more thing. I'm so sorry. I have to say this. So I was talking with Ammon today. We were talking about the goal and agenda of people's rights and what each of our visions in the states were when we started creating this. People's rights is not about your county commissioners. And whether or not county commissioners get together and vote, because I know in all areas everyone wants their county commissioners to get together and cast a vote saying that you can open. They can't legally do that because they can't close you.
Yeah, really.
And I can't teach false principles with people's rights, okay? So we're not a Republican committee, we're not a PAC, that's not what we're about. We teach people the principles of liberty, and then if you want to go run for office and these are places you want to go, your community is going to be better because you learn the principles of liberty. You think that your county commissioner can vote to open your community, you're already starting off bounds, and you already don't understand the rules and the rights of the people. The county commissioners have zero authority to cast a vote saying the people should open. They literally have zero authority. All they need to do is say, I can't vote for you to open because I couldn't vote to close you down to start with. So we could do a vote saying we should publicly tell everybody their rights. Hey guys, we took a vote, we all agreed, we're going to let you in on this little secret. You all have the right to open. But it's not that they're giving people permission to open because they don't have permission, because then you have a group on the left that are all with their county commissioners going, take a vote, we need to close down again. So then all of a sudden you realize that you started off teaching false principles because they don't have the authority. Teach your commissioners that they don't have the authority to close your communities down. We delegate authority to them to defend and protect our rights, not to determine, and they're like, well, we're not in a pandemic and we want the people to know. Well, what happens when we are in a pandemic? Do they then have the right to close us down? No. So we don't have to prove to the community that we're not actually in a pandemic and that the commissioners should tell us to open, because even if we were, they don't have the right to tell people. People are going to use common sense and go, everyone's dropping like flies, I'm not leaving my house. We don't need our county commissioners to say, you can't leave, I'm putting you on house arrest. The authority wasn't delegated then. So we need to start from the bottom up, teaching ourselves the true principles of liberty, and that's what people's rights is. And we're just not going to play this game and try to say that they have an authority. They don't, because it sounds good and it appeases the people. They don't have the authority to do it. So they can do it, but they need to know they're doing it outside of their authority. Just like if they took a vote determining that I can keep my kids, or that I can teach this class. I go, what a waste of time. I'm going to do it anyway. You didn't have the authority to go one way or the other. So let's teach our commissioners and our sheriffs and our legislators what their responsibilities are that were delegated to them, because then we're going to start to see a change in our communities. We really will start to see a change in our communities when we do that. So with that, we'll turn it over to Julie. Julie's going to be going over some basic gardening, and I hope, again, you guys go home and do this. I have my little trays ready to go at my house, and whatever she tells us this week needs to go in and get going based on the timeline we're going to do it, and hopefully we're going to all have fresh food this spring to bring to our neighbors. Any questions, comments, concerns? Nothing, Lawrence? You don't have anything for us? I said comments. All right, I'll turn it over to Julie. Bob.
HDMI.
HDMI question.
What's all that? You want to
Will you just HDMI that to that?
Peoplesrights.org, remember it. Look it up, log in. Print out your frequencies. I've been messing around with the ham radio. Look up local frequencies, look up all the repeaters for Washington and Oregon, whether you matters to you right now or not, and print them off. Make a folder. That's what I've been doing. Make a folder and then you have it. Okay?
My name is Julie Morris, and she said I know some stuff about gardening, and I'm like, maybe. I'm learning. Because I have a learning garden. That's what I call it. Because we don't grow. But we are learning every year. I've been doing this probably for 10 years. And the biggest thing to know is if I can do some stuff, you can do some stuff. And everyone can do something. I have a really cool quote I love from Thomas Jefferson. It goes like this. Cultivators of the earth are the most valuable citizens. They are the most vigorous, the most independent, the most virtuous, and they are tied to their country and welded to its liberty and interest by the most lasting bands. Thomas Jefferson. So, coming up there?
Who here is super familiar with gardening?
So, yeah. So who has been growing a garden? Awesome. So this will be a lot of news for you, but for those of you who have aspired to grow a garden or started meddling it, or how can I expand quickly and easily, this is one for you. The biggest thing is the why. And Kelly already talked about this, but I think the biggest why is people that garden live longer. I mean, the people on I live a little bit out of town, just a little bit. And the people that have gardens in their yard are outside every day for a reason. They're giving up. They're not sitting watching that thing that warps our brains, all the time. It just keeps people alive. And in morale and also in effort in what you're doing. And so my why happened in Las Vegas, where I lived for 30-something years, probably 33 years. And I was like, why do I live in the desert? I can't really grow food very well here. I tried. You can. You have to do a lot of input, and a lot of water, and there's not a lot of water there. And I saw the lake going down, and I thought, where are we going to get water? Where am I going to get food? So I moved to a place where I thought more people would be growing food, and I just was shocked how many people were not growing food. I was also happy that there were some. There are some people who know the value of being independent. And so I started taking classes and learning and dabbling gardening stuff. And so I thought the most useful thing I gained when I started trying this out more for reals, like meaning I'm going to do this, was a class where every month we just had a sheet and all the things you do during that month. We talked about the different things that month, and I thought I'd like to share that in abbreviated form here because I'm not going to be able to share all the things. But right now, what can we be doing? What are you guys doing now that garden already? What are you doing now?
Mulching.
Mulching?
Seeding, yeah.
Okay, who else? Making compost. Awesome. Here is the compost that never made it out to the compost bin because that child is whatever. He's 12. And it just didn't get out there, but I was like, oh good. I got it. I am compost wow. Like, I don't want anything to go into the trash that I have to pay for to throw away that I can use again for valuable things. And so I literally, this is my laundry room compost. This is all leather. I compost shoes. I compost, wool socks. This is all my garbage stuff because this stuff only gets the cotton stuff. This is a 100% cotton rug that just threadbare. I literally stick everything organic matter that can break down into compost. Full I'm a rebel composter. I do not listen to those rules. I do live not in a city block, so I don't care if that things come out of the compost. Yes. I do passive compost. I have 6 kids and way too much I put on my fun plate. Yeah, if you can get me to do what you ask, and that's not the key. So, right now, gather organic matter, and so I thought today I would show you how I build beds. A lot of people do things in an orderly fashion, and they believe that planting in the box is the way to do it. And I plant outside the box. I just do because I feel I'm less constrained by the box, and I can do more, wider, bigger, easier, faster. So the biggest way that I do it, so that's interesting. So are you saying I have to look at it there?
We didn't practice. Do you want me to run it?
Not really, 'cause, okay, so this is my method. That was there that day. This is Saturday. Oh, look at that. And we just had a big plot that, like, oh my gosh, it's crazy. And the thing I love about sheet mulching is you are really, unless it's straight up concrete, you can just start with anything below. And so I didn't bring in some sod. I wish I had some. That'd be cool. But, you know, I just put this grass here because when you start sheet mulching, you don't have to touch the ground as far as removing anything. The more you have it, the better actually, because the more organic matter you have, the more you can convert the soil. And that is your goal, is to build soil. Every day, all the time, building soil, however you do that. And so, for me, building soil means just adding things. And adding things I don't have a home depot for, because I'm part of that place, and I want to be able to do it for free, as much as possible, and not have to let invest. One thing I don't always do is my own compost, because you don't know what I make. Plus, I use it and I mean, I just make it passively, so I'm not asking people. Woo, you know what I said. So, the first thing is to just have your ground, and I aerate it. Use a rock in it with these tines, and go into the ground, and you rock back and forth, and you aerate your soil. If you don't got that, you just stick your shovel in, or your pitchfork, or a pole, or whatever. Just aerate your soil with it. And then, I wish I could build this thing. So, some people don't mind, well, I'm a no-till camp over here, because I believe the soil layers matter and the order that they're in there is that way for a reason. And so I think that every time you till your soil up, you lose health, nutrition. That was, if you have clay and you want to break up clay, this breaks up clay. Just organic, you're adding organic matter and the world to do it for you. So, literally, on top of this, I have this wool rug thing that's 100% wool that I've never done anything with. And I'm like, this year, I'm going to sheet mulch with the wool rug. So here's a rug. Literally, I can put anything down on the ground that I want just to turn back into earth. I'm going to put a sheet. Oh, this is a bunch of orange. And then,
So this is right on top of a bed of wheat.
this is just the ground. I mean, if you're doing a few beds and you just want to make an awesome sauce, the more the merrier, but even if you just do cardboard with some weed-free straw, and not pesticide, so that's kind of hard. The mulch needs to be no seeds and stuff on top, but you just do a simple layer with cardboard and then you plant into it. Like, that's way simple. This is, if you have a little more time and a little more organic matter, if you want to build up your soil, you just put organic mass. I'm not even going to break it up. I'm not going to go through this compost stuff. I made these awesome fermented peppers. They didn't work out, but that's okay. I'm still using them. Just that, when the stuff gets a little, I don't know who ferments here. The stuff when it goes about the water, it's just not right. It's sweet potatoes, whatever. So I
Is
just
this ready to plant? Or this is months
So
before?
this is right now. Like, when you're making a sheet mulch bed, I don't mind. Several weeks before is fine, but like right now, wherever you're doing it, you start building your soil. And so,
But you're building it now to get ready for
I'm
the spring.
building it now to get ready.
Okay.
If you're going to be trying to plant it 2 weeks from now or 2 weeks from now, I'll probably not. But like literally, I'll put spade and scoot stuff over and plant right in my hole after I break it through. So I can walk around with and stuff. Okay, so that's that. And then you want to put anything that has weed seed in it. This is just local straw, hay, whatever we got for boats this week. And it is got seed in it. I put it already.
So it's okay with seeds.
Yeah, absolutely. Anything that has seeds you don't want to grow in your garden, you put below the cardboard. So this is if you're lucky enough gardeners gold. I literally recruit people, bring me leaves. I put a sign by the road. I usually get a dozen people bring me leaves. Only 2 this year. I think people are going out so much for some reason. So,
And where's the cardboard? Oh, you're not sure yet.
so at this point, I personally, it really, what I'm trying to show you is it just doesn't matter what you have under your cardboard. As
As long
much
as it's organic.
as long as it's organic material and you want it to be put into your food. Well, polyester doesn't make dryer lint.
Yes, it does. Guaranteed.
What?
Yeah.
Okay, I was told it didn't. So,
Every fiber that you put in
every
your dryer
fiber makes
will-
dryer lint. Okay, so never mind. Don't put your dryer lint unless you know it's all cotton.
If you take a match to it, it will melt. It won't burn.
Cotton
I
only.
read that on someone's blog. I was like, oh good.
So explain the shoe though. Is anybody else traumatized by the shoe?
It's all
I know
leather.
we're cleaning out. Okay, it's all leather.
Yeah, and sometimes, let's say the thread is plastic. I've literally taken out this pair of pants that was 99% cotton except for the thread. And so it had this patchwork of polyester thread. And I was like, oh, pants! But then, you know, all the other stuff is gone. But this compost, I love it. Everything compost. That's my favorite. Everything. I personally take all the tape off. Anything that's that I end up digging up there. But when I sheet mulch, I overlap. Because I do not buy Amazon anymore. My husband is still.
That's a good place for Amazon.
So you overlap. You cannot just stick your cardboard like this. It's useless. And then, so I really overlap. And I'm not obviously doing this. I'm just doing this.
Picking up everything she's doing.
But at this point, you can also put underneath here, you can put amendments to the soil, you have kale, or not kale, kelp, or if you have, who other amendments?
Can you guys all hear her online?
Who has other amendments? Lime, I usually compost. Yeah? Yeah, eggshells, everything else. And then,
Can you use the mic? The people on the mic can't hear you.
and then, I personally have I didn't bring it, I have this leaf mold, oh, I love leaf mold. It's just leaves sat in a year in a bin, doing its thing. And 'cause it becomes really fine, so I don't have to chop it up, but if you have straw or hay that does not have seeds in it, you do it here, and then, once you put it with cardboard, don't put seeds back in it, or just use all of this stuff. Be careful about the seeds on the top, that really matters a lot. That's pretty good. And then I'll just put some soil. This is a hard thing, because unless you've been making your soil for a long time, and you built it up and you've really gotten your compost stored well, and you're really good compost person, you don't always have topsoil or whatever. So this is straight up compost. I got this from Battleground Rockery. They said it's organic, certified. And it's risky. A lot of people have bad luck with soils because you don't know what the people before put in their dirt. And so if you have persistent herbicides that have been in the ground forever, then they don't go away.
So this is a topsoil.
This is a compost. This is just garden compost. And I personally, plant directly into compost. It's not hot and it's well aged. And I've done a lot of it, so no problem. You have to know how old it is, and you can often tell by whether it's steaming or not. Age, time, that's how you know. I don't know. That's what it is.
So like my manure piles from last year from cleaning out the barn, it's just like hay and no food. And it just all looks like mud
Mm-hmm.
or dirt.
Yeah, I probably put that on the bottom layer because they might have weed seeds in the poop, But, so rabbit poop I put on top because that doesn't burn. Whatever, the biggest thing if you put it too young, your aged manure, your manure that's not aged, then you burn the plants. So much more to that, right? And so, if I've done starts, I will just dig a hole, cut it in my spade, put it in my cardboard, and I just plug directly in there. I also will just pop seed into compost. Like right now, I put on here what we can plant outside almost nothing. Radishes, one sheet has said it. I don't see that everywhere, but I thought, hey, you know, it's worth a try.
So we can plant radishes now,
Yeah.
and I think it's 6 weeks or something, maybe?
Yeah, radishes you can grow
So
most
right
of the
now,
year.
it's just in the
And really soon that it opens up a little more with that fog, you know, there's other things like the mid-February. Yes. Yeah, oh yes, so the benefits, yes, you hold moisture. Another thing is worms love compost. So if you didn't till your soil beforehand, you use a broad fork. I've done that sometimes. You know, everything's coming up to eat the glue, and they like to put the glue in their cardboard. And they come up and it all turns, actually this thing's probably, I don't know, 9 months to break down. But all of this keeps in moisture, right? So anytime you mulch, so many people say to keep your moisture in, and then you have less weeds also. So it's kind of a double thing.
How long would it take for all that with that cardboard?
Oh, in the winter here?
Yeah,
Oh, I don't know.
like in 1 year?
In 1 year, like all this is here. And you just, oh, I looked at that piece of tape. Yeah, I'm not gonna mess with that computer. But, so, and if I wasn't planting it just yet, I'd cover it with leaves, by the time you didn't have seeds in it, and just leave it.
We
And,
could do this right now, get our garden ready.
yeah, right now, like, start gathering your cardboard. And if you do nothing else but stick your crazy organic matter underneath, top with cardboard so the weeds aren't starting to come up. And then a couple weeks later, you're like, oh, I got some awesome compost here. And you can top dress it after the linear, so much doesn't matter as long as your weed seeds are underneath the cardboard. This is like, there's so many ways that people do it. Some people put the compost first, like the poop, that one hasn't been highly, worked through, I put it in that. All right, so some other things that you're doing now is starting a few seeds. There's not a lot, I mean, this list isn't very long. Who will read this, things you can sow indoors right now? Who will read that out loud? Actually, if they don't have my, who wants to use a microphone to do that?
They haven't had you
So we pass those out.
I do. Sorry, where do you want me to read? Just all the things you can plant right before indoors.
Oh, okay. So what we, on the very bottom, it says sow indoors. Artichoke, arugula, bee balm, endive, kale, lettuce, mallow, mustard, onions, peas, scallions, spinach, yarrow. Do you want me to do the rest?
She said she didn't use her yarrow seeds. Really cool place that I get medicinal stuff is Strictly Medicinals. This is a really cool. So there are different ways you can start seeds. A lot of people, raise your hand if you've started your own seeds in your house. Awesome. So many ways you can do it. Lights, even just the south window, wherever you can get light. Some people set up shelves. I've said this several years. You set up shelves and put lights. This year, I'm going to try a new way that I'm going to try this. Who's ever tried winter sowing before? You were looking at this last week. Farmers, I don't know. It has some benefits because if you don't have much space in your house, then you can plant into basic things that are like a little greenhouse. For this, so it's got this hinge action, and then you take off the lid, and then you take tape. Take that. Oh,
You need an assistant.
put your seeds in. So I was gonna put my onions in here, so I'm like, oh, right here, but I put the box. But right now, I'm gonna be planting onions for outdoor sowing because onion starts. I have not had luck. I've been using those for sort of 6 years. And I just found a blog this week that said start your onions from seed for yourself. And so right now, like I would get probably a good quarter pack and just densely seed this. Pour it in here and then take it out and you just put it outside. Yeah, in the snow if you have snow, if it's still freezing. And this is just a little greenhouse. And the cool thing about this is if you're seeds need cold stratification, then you're outside. And so, if you think about how when things reseed on their own, they just start to grow when it's time. So it kind of mimics that without as many factors. Like, you won't have the chickens digging that up or the seeds getting too wet as much. And so then you just stick this outside, and when it's, certain days you would open it up, really nice days. But it makes a little greenhouse thing here, and my friend that does this, she's not very well, she didn't come, but she plants most of her seeds like this. I'm gonna do it both ways, because when I try something new, I'm like, I'm not gonna abandon my old, seed trays and everything inside with lights. But this is another way to do outdoor sowing. This is just my rice bag. And I put 2 inches of soil. So I want people to be able to do this for less money, less input, reusing things as much as possible. And you would just seal this up and keep it in there and just have a little air hole so air can get out and put your seeds in. And you put it outside on the back table.
You put the lid back on the plastic
No.
container, now it seals off.
That's it.
How many seeds are you putting in there?
Oh, well, for onions, I put a little bit on here about onions because that's one thing I was researching because I'm like, okay, we're gonna do onions good, we're gonna research onions. And so for winter sowing, these guys, I watched the GI Gardener this week, and he literally planted a whole 3 packs in 1 seed tray, densely, because he said the roots are not super strong and deep, so you can really divide onions really easily. And so I'm going to just do this I'm going to do outside drillish for onions because they're also very cold hardy. I'm going to try it all on my grass because I grew those in last year. I think it was too warm for them. So I'm going to try both of these. Yes.
I have a question. I had in my front area in front of my house, I put wood chipping from an apple tree. Could I leave some wood parts under it? Or like under the wood chips?
I personally, so wood chips are, you have to be careful about what kind of wood chips. If you want to plant that year, it's not good to do the evergreen varieties, but the deciduous varieties. See, I'm not going to speak on wood chips because I've heard different things. Some people just plant directly in wood chips. Anyone ever do that? They use the Eden method and they plant directly in wood chips. Anyone here? I tried it once, I didn't know that way. So I'm not going to have to do that. But I would put a layer of wood chips in my mulch here, my sheep mulch here for sure, as long as they're not really big ones, right? Because those are more acidic.
That big one.
I put underneath. Most things that are going to be hard to break down, I put underneath.
What kind of soil are you putting in the bag in the?
Oh, this is just seed starting. That's not exactly seed starting soil. But this seed starting soil, some people use potting mix to start seeds in because they're like, man, let's survive. Some people use the Jiffy stuff for the really fluffy, like almost impossible to ruin it until the nutrients run out really quick. So I personally like to plant directly in the potting soil and that stuff. Yeah. Yeah. So whenever I buy seeds, here, I wanted that closer, but I couldn't figure out. We just grab all of the kohlrabi seeds. Yeah. So that's how I organize my seeds. Okay, grab all the cabbage.
Can you zoom in?
Okay, so nowadays, if you want to rely less on stores and rely less on other people, the more that you have your own seeds and your seed saving, that would be part of this, all year long thing, right? That's in November, and October, and September. But the more you buy heirloom seeds, and usually they say heirloom, that is food security because those seeds grow, true to seed thing is so interesting. But those seeds can make plants again that are more reliable. So I'll tell you this, squash seeds, for example. You can plant those, but they cross-pollinate a lot. And so unless you've done these tricks to, close the flower on the first day, whatever, your food is not going to be true to seed. But there's a lot of things that do. So I know
What does that mean?
cabbage does. true to seed is it's going to grow like its mommy. So a lot of people have tried to plant hybridized seeds. Hybridized seeds are not the worst thing, but they're sure not food secure because you never know what you're going to get. And so it could turn into who knows. So no, this is organic does not mean it's going to be urban. So you just have to pay attention. And sometimes I'll buy some hybridized organic peppers, for example, because they grow those for certain traits and they're they could be super fancy. But a lot of them is this in heirloom here? As much as possible, I like to get heirloom seeds. And a place that a lot of people go is Baker Creek. They were closed last week. They're like, we're too busy. They're selling out. Buy your seeds now. It's time. Just like candy supplies, just like all the things people are like, oh my gosh, I should have bought seeds already. But if you haven't got them already, that's okay. The time is now. I always hear of seed swaps. It's not happening this year. Does anyone know of any seed swaps happening? People think they know each other for some reason. I don't know why. So, if we have enough interest in this group, we can do a seed swap. I mean, yes. That's a lot to let go to seed, but okay, I know what you mean. Leave some to go to seed, yeah. Right. So, like me, for example, oh my gosh, last year the crop of mustard greens, Amanda was living with me at the time. She was working over at my house. That mustard was a bomb, huh? And I just let several of them go to seed, and I'm hoping the chickens are rip it up enough in that garden spot to grow more. I think I put some stuff down, so hopefully they'll grow back on their own. Because when you let things go to seed, that they're going to grow pretty close to their mama, then it's way easier. I have a whole patch of parsnips that just grew like, hey, I don't remember letting that go to seed. This is amazing. So, that's the glory of heirloom seeds. Things are just going to grow up again and they grow. So, all right. Any other questions about that? Did I explain that enough? Buy heirloom seeds whenever possible.
Is it because the other ones you can't collect the seeds and regrow them?
Yeah, you can collect the seeds, they just aren't going to grow. And also tons of them aren't even made to have seeds. Like flowers, certain flowers are like, how'd that get there? Because they've just made it for certain traits and they don't want people regrowing it sometimes. So they've altered it, and it's not really genetically modified. It's not going to grow horns on or anything, but it's just, they just altered it into labs and stuff. Not in a bad way sometimes. Like, for example, seedless watermelon, right? That's just a trait that they brought on, and they trained it to do that. So, anything else about that?
Where do they get the seeds for seedless watermelon?
Yeah, I don't know that answer. Let me know if you find out. All right. So one thing, if you haven't planted garlic yet, it's not too late. I was researching garlic. I just have some that we dried and hung up, and it's starting to grow. And I'm like, oh, let's put some more in. So soft neck varieties are the kind you want to choose now. And like this garlic that we grew last year, it's starting to sprout. It's starting to grow up. Organic garlic, almost always. I'm probably 6 years in a row. I've just bought organic garlic. And it grows. Then it sprayed stuff on it. So you can do natural grocers. I used to love that stuff. I go in there because they're Nazis. But I'm sorry. I didn't even try them. So it's growing, and I have a place where I'm just like, oh, I found another one with green stuff on it. And I'm just popping them out in my little bed. But we actually did official, good catch garlic. I don't know if you guys saw that picture up there, but garlic is a pretty easy grow. You want to enrich your soil with, compost or whatever, and add some organic fertilizer, granule if you don't have chickens or anything. Man, get some chickens. Get rabbits. If I were to start, I start with rabbits. They're way less noisy. They don't tear up the soil. So I like the noise of chickens. I have 6 roosters. Don't get me wrong. But
Rabbits get holes everywhere.
Rabbits dig holes? Oh, I don't put them them directly in the garden.
Oh, my arm, they get holes everywhere.
No, I put them over the garden, I move it around. Oh, that's soil, it makes it awesome. But you need a poop maker. It's just what you do. And chicken in every yard, even if it doesn't let you sweat great, you need the nutrition. You need that for your soil. And so I get some poopers, not humans. Well, it's not a good conversation, but.
It's a closed environment.
So garlic, the biggest thing about garlic is that it wants to be pretty dang deep. Once you put it in the soil, you put the soil just a few inches under, how much is it? 2-3 inches deep, 6 inches apart, like in a grid type formation. And then I put a bunch of mulch, at least 3 inches of mulch on top of it. And when I did that and added the organic matter into the soil growing, and then it just grew amazing. Because it wants to it keeps the weeds out and the garlic can still grow up through there. And we had a really great harvest this year, it was really exciting.
So like this thing here, you put your garlic under that?
So if I was planting garlic and I would put my garlic under here, you would put your garlic, as deep down as you would need a larger layer of topsoil.
So would it be on top or below the curtain?
It would be on top.
Okay.
Like I probably would not do my new bed with this. You have to put a deeper layer really if you want to plant directly with garlic. I put an established bed. If you have beds already established and they're naked right now, put something over them. Here, leaves or whatever, or even some of these tarps or whatever. But until you're ready to plant, leave it covered. You don't want to be naked soon.
Do you understand what she's saying?
Ryan, do you prefer South Lake or
I don't. I actually prefer, culinarily, hard neck is better, but soft neck is just easier to come by. Hard neck is usually more expensive for the seed, and so I often just start with soft neck. I wanted to find a hard neck and over it, and I really wanted to, so I just went with soft neck. And so this year, I actually have to go buy one of that. It was kind of cool. I just use my own seed and made more. So that's the goal, right? To keep it going. Close the loop. Okay, she's talking about scapes. So she asked about the things on top. So if you cut those out, your garlic will grow better. You cut the scapes and you saute them, also good, and then your the bulb can keep growing. Because once the thing makes a flower, that's its goal. So once the plant or whatever is making the flower, it's done making the food or whatever, because that's its goal, flower. So, garlic. Any questions about garlic?
Just cut those off when they start growing.
Yeah, you cut the scapes off even. So yeah, unless you want to make some seeds, then you can let feed it. But yeah.
Can you do those in pots right now?
What?
Because I don't want like my rain
Absolutely.
I want to save her.
Yeah. You can plant garlic in pots for sure. You can plant almost
Leave it outside.
Yeah. Oh yeah, these should definitely be outside. Alliums are really cool work. They stick up in
The
the
onions and the garlic are outside right now.
Yeah.
We could do all this week. And then
But you would put onions in the plastic containers.
Oh,
So
I'm
it's-
seeding onions in the plastic container outside. Yeah, I'm gonna do onions. Get ordering seeds, guys. It's time. I ran out of onion seeds. I had a few from like a few years ago. I'm like, man, I need new onion seeds. And I was looking, and it's a little harder to find. So you gotta do a little more. I have a book here that I recommend, like as a beginning gardener guide, because it has what to do every month. And then it has just a lot of resources for the Northwest. So this is the Maritime Northwest Garden Guide. And it is really good for what to do when. And it's also good because it has varieties that are especially good for our climate. That matters. Because if you get slow day, is it short day or long day? Yeah, short day, long day onions. So there's short day, long day, and there's intermediate. But the long day, we have longer summer days. And so we have a long day. And if you live below the 30th parallel, you get the short one. So we need long day. Is it long day? Am I saying that wrong? Long day onions. Long day, no, that's not right. Whatever, the one that's the long day.
Can you hold the book up to the camera before you're done? Because I'm going to rewatch this.
Maritime Northwest Garden Guide. Back when I used to support the war, I'm not supposed to support This is one that if you want to take a picture of, this is a Portland calendar. But I keep these handy because and you guys can sign up a list if you want to make printouts. I just want to print all these things if you don't want them. Yeah.
I just want to make a comment. There's a state company that has seeds specifically for these.
There's a seed company that tests seeds specifically for the Northwest. Okay.
It's called
Territorial. Yes. Cigars. How are they on masks? That's always my question. Do they let me walk in their naked face? Oh. Okay, that's good. Yes, there are. Like I was going to show you in this, there's a whole, this is an older version, so it's not going to be exactly up to date, but like Nichols garden seeds, Horizon. So these are all ones that were, for local places. These are from Missouri. These, what do you call this? They've become quite a popular company, Baker Creek Heirloom Seed Company. They have most, I don't know if they're all heirlooms. No, but their focus is heirlooms. And so tons of people order from these guys. Beautiful seed packets. They're really, really reliable. Some seeds don't grow the way they're supposed to. Uprising Seeds, that's a really good local company. Yeah.
Territorial sells online.
And Territorial does sell online. They don't have the onions I want. They're there, yeah. So if you can just do it online, it helps a lot. Baker Creek, what other ones do I like? Siskiyou Seeds. I can put a list of this on the.
If you could put that on Telegram, that'd be great.
Look at this person has Siskiyou. You really can. Yes. Are there different seed manufacturers?
Somebody distract her.
This is a bigger company, the bigger the less reliable, because they're getting their seeds from all over the place. I like somewhere like Siskiyou, especially because they're growing almost all of their seeds where they say, we got this from this farm. We got this from this farm. And I personally really like that.
What have you planted right now? Are you getting ready to plant?
What I'm going to do is I'm going to order some onions and plant some onions. I actually have a few, I'm going to go back to pick up some onions somewhere. Because I want a deep, heavy, I will put probably in 4 of these type containers, I will probably put a whole seed packet. You can densely do your onions. I'm going to do onions. I'm going to do them good this year. And when I make it go, it's like usually every year, like, okay, I'm going to master this year. So last year was the goal. I never got it. Brassicas. I actually got brassicas. I don't know who grows brassicas from. Brassicaceae family is like all of the broccoli, cauliflower, cabbage, Brussels sprouts. They're a little more challenging, unless you got just staying lucky with your soil or whatever you bought. So if you bought a mix that was just perfectly balanced for that, that's awesome. So I fertilized with poop juice, I call it. Amanda helped me do that. Fertilize with poop juice. That's awesome. So, other things. So
you want to ask
more.
I know.
So, a lot of people. I know. Very radical gardenership. This is just, I have an organic garden, Northwest Organic Gardens. They ordered a big bag of it, huge. And then just sold 10-gallon jugs of it. It's basically composted chicken manure turned into compost tea. So if you have chickens and you have poop, and you put them in water, you make compost tea. And then you dilute it, and then you put it on there. And you got peat. This is something that when I started getting into more permaculture ideas, and that's really close in the loop. You do it every day, all the time. And so you dilute your urine 1 to 10. So 1 part urine, 10 parts of liquid, and this is a radical idea, right? But
You mean
it's
our urine?
Urine is sterile, and people since a long time been using it to grow their
How
gardens.
do you collect it?
That's for the after 9 p.m. class.
Depends on which
I don't have-
Are you male
don't have boys. I don't have young boys.
So my boys will not just do that for me free willy. They're like, they'll be wherever they want, but they will not do it for me in a certain spot. So,
So you give him one of those.
so a lot of people, like if you want to collect your own urine, I know, but this is okay. I'm just throwing it out there. And
That's not
apple.
apple juice, you guys.
I don't think I could get it in that small of a thing.
You don't cut this.
Okay, wait. So you collect it and then you use.
I have collected my own urine.
And wait. And then you use that, right? You dilute it and you use that in your garden.
In the garden.
And why would you do that as opposed to manure from your chickens or rabbits?
It's really easier to get. When I have chicken manure, I have to like age that. I can't just put that.
Oh, right,
And
it's a
it's
burn.
connected, and their pee and their poop is together, and it's being separated.
I think she invites her enemies.
It's easy, it's simple. I know how to work this. That's what I should do. You guys
So
are.
it's 1 to 10.
What?
1 to 10.
1 to 10.
And
Yeah.
you just dump
And
it.
Wonder what people
so,
are saying
especially your green things, you know, if you're growing it full green, like if you're doing the leaves for, you know, the chard or the kale or whatever, they need nitrogen, a lot of it. So, yeah.
It also strengthens your immune system.
If I get it.
Urine.
Wait, okay, I'm not done. Somebody said it's really good for dry hands. I heard that last year. I'm like, wow, I'm try that, but I have eaten it. So, it's not that hard.
What is this about again?
Great. I've never even heard of putting urine.
This is permaculture. Like the goal is to use what you have to close your salad, to not have to buy from other sources. I personally, my husband and I are different on this, so we get a lot of things that I, you know, personally get the $100. Sorry, two people different. But I would like to use the trees on my land as much as possible, not buying things from the store whenever possible. I want to reuse things. This is sustainable. That's the buzzword goal, but man, if Biden wants everyone to be communized, then we need sustainability. Even if that's the cool liberal thing to do. I'm not a Republican or a liberal. I'm good. I'm a person. You know, we're people, and we need to survive. So this is a hobby. This is an important thing to do. Why do we garden? Because we like to stay alive longer in lots of different ways. So if you got a friend with stuff, it's a great time to divide things. Dividing, like all my daylilies are popping up. Anyone need daylilies? I like daylilies because they're pretty and you can eat them. And the tops, the flowers.
So the deer.
So the deer. Do these deer like daylilies? Daylilies can go crazy, so you gotta be careful with daylilies. But so many things. That's the lovely thing about gardening too. It creates sharing, it creates community. I would love to host a garden, not a garden, well, garden, oh my gosh, I probably wouldn't know as a winter. Oh my gosh. So much mud and craziness. But there's a book. Where? Yeah. So, yeah, this is a really cool book. Pacific Medicinal Plant, Pacific Northwest Medicinal Plants. Identify, harvest, and use 120 wild herbs. And so, getting out in the forest and understanding what's out there, one herb we really religiously use is steaming nettle. Because it's so great for vitamin C, it's really great for cleansing the body right after the winter time. And
Can you hold that up to the camera?
this is a really cool book. This isn't mine, but I've seen this one before. It's Penny's. Another resource you want to come take a picture of? What'd you say? Oh, we use plantain a lot at my house. If you don't know plantain, it's a really great one because it extracts things from the body. Like whenever you get a sting or a sliver, you put a poultice, a chew, pass it around there with a little tape over it, and it draws stuff. Plantain is an amazing one. There's so many good things. But this is a paper from my class, my mentor, I learned from Marisha Arbach from Portland. But this has all of the varieties of seed that she likes. So if you want to take a picture of that, there's that. And I think that's it for me for today. There's the seed. Yeah, the Portland Nursery online, really easy to download. their seed chart. But you can take a picture of this, or I can print some out if you write your name on the back of this. I don't want to print these out.
Would you recommend with the garlic, if it's organic from the store, right now it's in the fridge, there's some growing, right now, break them off and put them outside?
Yeah.
Hot?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
And you need
Garlic
good
is
hot
not too
soil.
late. Really soon though. Like they need some cold time. They need to be cold outside. Like hardneck needs a longer cold time. That's why I said sophomore. So yeah, hardneck is awesome, but you would usually typically start. Okay. Typically you start garlic in the fall, late fall. Yes. Nope, just heavy mulch. So she asked, couldn't she do garlic in a container, and then would she need a dome over it? No,
So,
just heavy mulch.
so basic question, what's the difference between mulch and compost?
Mulch for compost. I mean, so compost is usually a mix of stuff, and a mulch is anything you put over something. You know, a mulch is just organic matter that you pile over something. So you can mulch your compost. And mulch is more of a process, it seems, right? I don't know. You want to explain that better than I do? Thank you, Lawrence. It says, okay, say that again. It's organic matter that has not broken down substantially. So it maintains its,
So it's
form
leaves,
longer.
leaves and grass.
Leaves. What are some other mulches? Straw, grass. Say that again. Yeah. So it keeps it warm. That's one reason why garlic likes it, because it doesn't freeze in the ground. So you can use, well, shredded, yeah. So newspaper, if you weren't trying to grow something, great for mulching the ground. If you could put it thick, that'll be like cardboard, right? Some people use newspaper, they can have that instead of cardboard. But shredded newspaper, sure. Any other questions? I'm a wild gardener. I'm a learning gardener. I'm not an absolutely awesome gardener, but man, if ever came to it, I've got the skills. And if this isn't the year things go down, that's okay. We'll prepare us for when it does. Or it'll just keep you alive longer.
Thank you.
Who's gonna go home and plant onions? I'm gonna go home and plant onions and garlic.
Yeah, so
Who else is?
if I
Anybody?
can't get onion seeds, so I'm gonna go and I'm gonna buy onion seeds somewhere that I can go without a mask. I like Botanical Interest for organic seeds that are easy to find. I've had outlook with them. But Botanical Interest, they're just organic onion seeds. I buy them at Natural Grocery usually, or they're just a bunch of.
Oh, that's just about a store.
Yeah, just grocery seeds.
Can I share what you helped me with?
Yeah.
So, Julie, my daughter.
Can you grab the mic?
So Julie, so my daughter broke her toe swimming in a river, and she helped me with comfort to help heal my daughter's broken toe.
So comfrey is amazing. It is comfrey is a herb that people have used internally, but it's an FDA is like, oh, that those people too good or something. No, you have to be careful about how much comfrey you use. You can use it for cute things, but not like all the time comfrey cute. So comfrey, I had a man was a workawayer, and she worked on in the yard in exchange for stay and food. And it's a really cool program. If you need help at your house and you've got an extra room or a trailer, and it's just an exchange. It's really cool. But anyway, she gathered a bunch of comfrey leaves before they froze, and froze them in a poultice. I ground them up, and then stuck them in the freezer. You came when it was still growing, right? Yeah. And so I just sent it home with her, and it's called Knit Bone, and it's really amazing for wounds. So. Oh, she got frozen? Oh, cool. So, but comfrey, if you want comfrey, man, I got comfrey. Comfrey is the kind of thing you put in one place and don't dig around it, because it perforates very well, all over by root division. So people can really have bad news with their tillers, and they break it up in 100 pieces, they can be real bad. So, but then there's always sheet mulching, because sheet mulching kills everything. You imagine you have this large mat of organic matter, things aren't coming up. So I love this, because if you've got a pretty bed with just bark, I'll probably scrape some of the bark off and put it there instead. We don't need grass. If you have a small lot, cover your grass up. Bite the bullet. Can't eat grass. Yes. Yeah, sure. And tons of wood back. We can put underneath there. It'll break down and turn into awesome stuff.
It is not hard to make garden boxes.
Boxes
They're
aren't
very
hard,
easy.
but it's just another step personally that I feel like it's still like permanent. I like having logs that I can move around, or just, I have pictures, but I'll have to figure that out better next year. I'll have to do a PDF thing. Not a PDF, a slideshow thing. I just like the freedom of just, there, I'm gonna put my bed, and if you don't even have a border, it doesn't even matter. It's right around the grass. It's just easy. And if you have a box and you like it that way, cool. Those are good too. But that's another step. My sister had this stuff for a box for a year. I can't put my garden, I like to put it in my boxes. Now you don't need that. Just put it right there. But just start your cardboard and make your bed right there. So.
We did.
No pressure treated wood. Don't put them. Yeah, I personally am like, I'm not buy pressure treated wood. My husband doesn't feel that way. But I'm like, I want to be able to use things and have them rot here. And that'd be awesome. To return to be full of chemicals. What? Back to earth. Yes. Yeah. I prefer cedar if I don't want much to rot. But that's
Okay, thank you, Julie.
Thank you.
Okay, we are, so remember, if you want to sign up to help with one of these areas, please sign up. Let us know if you want to help teach them. We want to duplicate what we're doing here, like they're doing in one area in Oregon. We want to duplicate this in all areas, so every area is self-sufficient. We want to, even with like our sound stuff that we've been bringing and helping other events, we've been going to Thurston County, but we need Area 2 to get established so that Clark County isn't going to Thurston County, bringing their sound, and Vicky's dragging her stuff all over the place. Because ultimately, if you have to drive 2.5 hours to get support, what happens when we're busy? So the goal of People's Rights is not to have Clark County running all of Washington. It's that every area would be doing their own thing independently in each county, and then even breaking it down smaller than that as we get more populated. And within one group, you have somebody who talked about ham radios, security, Second Amendment needs, growing food, canning food. Just become, protesting, like we're kind of mobile protesters. We'll get over the summer. We've gotten good at it, but we want to teach other areas how to be mobile protesters so that when the need happens and somebody calls and says, I'm with People's Rights and I just had this rights violation. They don't go, oh, we're going to call Kelly and Vicki in Clark County. They can go, oh, we know what to do. We're going to get 20 people together. We're going to make some signs. Julie's always making our signs. Vicky's always bringing sound stuff. Like, somebody else is always showing up with their Second Amendment rights. And we just go, and everybody's kind of filled in. Justin always brings the fire pit so we can stay warm outside. And we need that in every area. And you're not going to know it unless, for those online watching, because I keep getting calls saying, we want what you guys are doing in our area. One person has to stand up and do it. One person has to have a meeting or say, this is a rights violation, we're going to show up. And you show up and you go, we don't have any signs, we're cold, where's Phil with the heaters? Like and then somebody shows up, but it's not Phil, it's somebody different. And he's like, hey, I've got some heaters I could bring. Yeah, I've got a fire pit. Hey, I love making signs. And all of a sudden you start getting a community built, but it takes time. And right now we have time, so let's do it. Right now, for the other areas that are out there that are here, let's keep duplicating this in other counties, because it is an amazing feeling to know that I could text 10 people right now if I had a rights violation, 50 people would show up. Because the 10 people I text, they'd each grab their friends, they're dedicated to me, we're friends, we do life together, I know they would show up. It's not even a question in my mind. It could be 3 o'clock in the morning and Vicki would show up if the cops were at my door. I know she would. She wouldn't, I would hunt her down.
I would have a
Would you
sound
show up?
system.
No communication, I wouldn't know how to get in touch with you.
Right, so coming to these meetings, you're going to leave and you're going to know if you go to peoplesrights.org and you log in, you're going to see my phone number, you're going to see our area assistance phone numbers. This week, everybody who signed up to help is going to be entered in as a, what did we call them? They're signed up as a, what did we say they were?
I don't know.
Just got launched today. Field assistant. Field assistant is going to have Julie's phone number, gardening needs, food needs. So right now you could go home, well tonight after I get ready to put it on the system, and you could click on it, it would say email Julie, text Julie, send Julie a private message within the People's Rights system. So all those options will be right there. And then my information is there, other area assistants, and so that's, and then just coming to these meetings, you're gonna exchange phone numbers, you're gonna get to know people each week, and then you're gonna start learning. Everybody has such different skills that they come.
Besides that, I wouldn't know you existed.
Aw, thanks, Matt. Isn't that great? We just started because we created an event online one day. Literally, I just typed it in and said, let's do a town hall meeting. We met at the First Grange in Salmon
Creek.
Salmon Creek.
You got kicked out that day halfway through the meeting. They panicked and said, oh my gosh, you have so many people there and you're not social distancing. And then somebody called me that night and said, I know this gal named Julie with her green garage. You guys can meet there. So then we planted a church in her green garage with beer bottles all over. Who saw the beer bottles at the underground
My
church?
picture had like a wall of your mouth.
And we met there for months, you know, and people are like, well, how did you guys start the church? I don't know, we just did a meeting, and then we said, hey, we have a need, we have nowhere to meet. Somebody said, I have a garage, and then somebody else, and how did you find Phil? I don't know. Like, it just, how did we find, you know, Vicky comes up, hey, I do sound stuff, do you want help? And I was like, I've been protesting 5 years with just my voice, but what do we need for sound? She's like, microphone? Like, speakers? And I was like, yeah, that would be great. So, it can be duplicated.
Yeah.
It can be duplicated.
I can help anybody help.
Okay, we're gonna watch a couple short clips, 5-minute clips. Chris Ann Hall. Being educated is important. It's boring, right? So hang with us for just like 15 more minutes if you can. This is on the Fourth Amendment. So this is Chris Ann Hall, Fourth Amendment. Only an ignorant people will tamely surrender their liberties. Okay, so that's why we do this. At the end of the year, with all these little things we're doing, you're going to know how to use a ham radio, you're going to be more comfortable around guns, you're going to be able to plant a garden, you're going to know the Constitution, and all of a sudden, we start to change our local community. Our judges and our sheriffs, they're all you guys eventually, right? Who's going to run for sheriff in Clark County?
You are.
Yeah. We need somebody to run for sheriff. I don't think I'd survive very long.
You said you were interested.
With us behind you, you will.
Look at Tat County at the first meeting last Thursday.
Yes.
60 people showed up.
Yes, look at
Bob
that.
Conger was there and he was raising up another posse to follow his footsteps.
Awesome. So Sheriff
We need
Payne,
to get the sheriffs, and if we could even get maybe, I don't know.
Adkins is
maybe
getting pretty political. We do. We need to get better sheriffs. Yep, so Clickitat County Sheriff was at last week's People's Rights meeting, which was awesome. He brought a bunch of his posse with him. Okay, let's get started and then we'll just eat and visit for the last half hour. What's that? Okay, so I'm gonna take pictures of the books in the end too.
And no more should be based upon probable cause supported by oath or affirmation, and particularly describing a place to be searched and the persons refused to be seized. Just like any other part of the Constitution, we have to know the history and intent behind the drafting of the Fourth Amendment to properly understand it. Remember Patrick Henry said, I have but one lamp by which my feet are guided, and that's the lamp of experience. I know no way to judge the future but by the past. The purpose of the Constitution and the Bill of Rights is to secure the blessings of liberty for present and future generations. How do we know we are successful? By knowing our history and not repeating its mistakes. History and the wisdom it reveals guided the designers of our Constitution, and it has to guide us as well. The principles of the Fourth Amendment were codified in British Liberty Charters, beginning with the Magna Carta of 1215. By the 1700s, this right of the people to be secure in their property was an established matter of law for the American colonists for over 500 years. So when the British government began trampling those rights, the issue wasn't whether those rights existed, but that the British agents were abusing them. The dispute over property rights really began to escalate when Parliament passed the Navigation Act of 1760, which mandated that the American colonists purchase only certain goods approved by the British government and supplied by British ships. This mandate of purchases became even more offensive to the colonists when Parliament began assessing consumption taxes on these mandated purchases. In other words, you have to buy it and we're going to tax you on it. The colonists saw this taxation as a direct assault upon their liberty and upon their property rights. The colonists began pushing back by boycotting certain taxed items and by purchasing items contrary to the established law. These colonists didn't believe they were breaking the law by refusing to follow Parliament's new laws. They believed Parliament was violating their original liberty charters and the self-evident natural rights of the people. It may be tempting to think that the issue the people had with their government was about money involved in taxation, but it was not about money. It was about the property rights of the people being violated through unlawful taxation. These British citizens in their American colonies were asserting that the Stamp Act violated every right to property that existed by natural law and every right to defend that property pursuant to natural law through their government's unlawful seizing of their property. Samuel Adams wrote in 1772 about the national rights of the colonists. He said, among the natural rights of the colonists are these. First, a right to life. Secondly, liberty. Thirdly, to property, together with the right to support and defend them in the best manner they can. He says these are evident branches of, rather than deductions from, the duty of self-preservation, commonly called the first law of nature. The American British colonists were raised with the understanding that ownership and defense of their property was a natural right, not one that was given to them by the king or by Parliament. So to see the king and Parliament taking their property contrary to the natural rights of the people was really offensive on many levels. The anger of the colonists against this taking of their property was really inflamed by Parliament's passing of the Writs of Assistance Law in 1760. Because of the colonial boycotts and the defiance of Parliament's laws, the government agents could not enforce the laws. Taxes were not being collected, and the colonists were not purchasing the goods they were required to purchase. To enforce these laws, Parliament passed the Writs of Assistance laws, authorizing custom agents and tax collectors to search and seize the colonial homes without following the laws established by laws of due process. Parliament claimed that the dissenters refusing to purchase the mandated items were committing acts of treason and were a threat to the well-being of the kingdom. It was necessary then for Parliament to temporarily set aside certain restrictions on government power in order to enforce the law and stop the criminals they claimed. These writs of assistance empowered tax collectors and customs agents to search and seize goods from colonial homes contrary to the colonists' rights to due process. These writs literally gave every individual agent the arbitrary and unchecked power to search and seize any item they chose under the color of law. Some agents were not limiting their searches to the taxed items. Some agents were seizing items out of greed, and some to establish business advantage. The seizing of items was not limited to goods. Some agents, finding themselves with completely unchecked power, took advantage of that power, and in satisfying their personal lusts, were searching and seizing our wives and daughters. These writs were not only a violation of the guaranteed right of all Englishmen, but had become something even more nefarious.
So we're like a quarter of the way down, and we started this back in April. So if you haven't watched the beginning ones, understanding that our founders didn't create the three branches of government and the Constitution, we inherited it, and it's been around for hundreds and hundreds of years. It will help you understand why she's talking about
All those videos were lost.
Let's go down to the next one now. Okay.
So just hang with us. I'm going to do one more. It's the end of the segment. We broke it down for. So I'm going to do one more if you guys will hang with it. Sorry about the sound.
James Otis Jr. was an attorney in 1760. He received from the king became the highest appointment that any attorney could achieve. Otis was in charge of enforcing the laws of the crown and ensuring that the colonists were properly prosecuted for their crimes. Now, Otis's father was also an attorney and raised Otis in the knowledge of British law and liberty charters. Because of this education and liberty, Otis became conflicted by the job the government was asking him to do and his knowledge and understanding of liberty. Because of these writs and their direct violation of English law and liberty, Otis resigned his post. Now, Otis could have gone back to a quiet practice of law, but that was not the kind of man Otis was. He could not remain quiet in the knowledge that the government entrusted with protecting the rights of the people was violating that trust and those rights. Otis became a whistleblower. Otis began publishing pamphlets and writing articles to inform American colonists about the government's violation of their rights. One of these pamphlets is titled "The Rights of the British Colonies Asserted and Proved," where Otis taught of the limited authority of government to tax and seize property and the superior nature of the natural rights of the people. He would speak to and teach whomever would listen. However, in 1760, there was no liberty movement, no committees of correspondence had been formed, and there were no Sons of Liberty. Otis's warnings were not well received by many in the community. He was threatened with loss of business. He was called every name in the book but a good Christian man. He was one of the only voices of liberty at this time, and by far the most bold and public of these voices. He wrote and spoke without anonymity, and took the brunt of all criticism because he believed it to be his duty in liberty. Otis said this, he said, "I can sincerely declare that I cheerfully submit myself to every odious name for conscience sake. And from my soul I despise all those whose guilt, malice, or folly has made them my foes." In Otis' experience, he knew that there were people who were acting for the destruction of the liberty of the people. There were those in power who were denying the people liberty because they were ignorant and didn't know any better. They were the father. And there were those in power who were denying the people liberty because they felt it was necessary to sacrifice principle on the altar of pragmatism. They are the guilty. And he knew that there were those in power who were denying people liberty because they were wicked and power hungry. They are the malice. His point was, whether the reason is ignorance, compromise, or wickedness, at the end of the day, it makes no difference, as the results are exactly the same. The people have lost their liberty. Otis is teaching us, these people are not our representatives. They are not our friends, they are our foes. The foes of liberty. In February of 1761, Otis would take on a legal case regarding these writs of assistance that would most literally change the world. We will learn of this case in the next class. In 1761, James Otis Jr. was approached by two business owners whose businesses had been particularly ravaged by a greedy British agent. These men asked Otis to help them file a case against this agent and ultimately against the writs of assistance themselves. Otis agreed to take the case, and in February of 1761, he would argue before the courts for 5 solid hours. He argued these writs of assistance were the worst instruments of arbitrary power, the most destructive of English liberty ever found in an English law book. At the end of the day, the court would not even render an opinion, but declared they would take the matter under advisement. What that means is that all of Otis' work and sacrifice changed nothing about the application of this tyrannical law. Although the law was not changed that day, something more important and more powerful was birthed that day, a passion in the hearts of the people for the preservation of their rights to life, liberty, and property. In that courtroom that day was John Adams, Samuel Adams, Dr. James Warren, and many of the men who would become the liberty movement that would birth the independence of America. Otis's argument before the court that day was a pivotal moment in history, so powerful that John Adams would write about it 40 years later. John Adams wrote, "But Otis was a flame of fire, with a promptitude of classical allusions, a depth of research, a rapid summary of historical events and dates, a profusion of legal authorities, a prophetic glare of his eyes into the future. and a rapid torrent of impetuous eloquence. He hurried away all before him. American independence, Adams said, was then and there born. The seeds of patriots and heroes to defend the vigorous youth were then and there sown. Adams said, every man of an immense crowded audience appeared to me to go away as I did, ready to take up arms against writs of assistance. Then and there was the first scene of the first act of opposition to the arbitrary claims of Great Britain. Then and there, the child of independence was born. Adams would finish his thought by saying in 15 years, namely in 1776, that child grew up to manhood and declared himself free. From this amazing event, James Otis Jr. was evermore considered by the founders of America as the midwife to liberty. This one man taking a stand for the liberty of all, sacrificing his life, his reputation, his profession, changed the world. Although the events of that particular day likely felt like defeat, we need to remember in the battle for liberty, we must think differently about the terms of victory and defeat. Sometimes taking a stand and planting a seed for the future is more valuable than feeling the immediate and present effects of victory. Otis knew this. This is the value of liberty that Otis understood. This is why he said, consequences be as they may, I am determined to proceed. We need to notice that what Otis was fighting for was the liberty of property rights. James Madison wrote an essay called Property. In this essay, he made a very important observation. He said, it is not a just government, nor is property secure under it, where the property which a man has in his personal safety and personal liberty is violated by arbitrary seizures of one class of citizens for the service of the rest. A magistrate issuing his warrants to a press gang would be in his proper functions in Turkey or Indostan, under appellations proverbial of the most complete despotism. Madison was speaking of an important principle of liberty, that when those in government do not respect the property rights of the people, when those in government are able to take the property of the people without proper due process, simply by force and color of law, that government must be classified as a completely despotic government. Madison also explains in this essay that the British government was not only despotic for taking property unlawfully, but for not protecting the property of the people from unlawful takings. Government's only purpose, Madison says, is to protect the rights and the property of the people. He says government is instituted to protect property of every sort, as well as that which lies in the various rights of the individuals, and that which the term particularly expresses. He says this being the end of government, that alone is a just government, which impartially secures to every man whatever is his own. The rights of the people, to include the right to property, precedes all government. Government was created for the sole purpose of securing the rights of the people. Otis made this point when he wrote, the end of government being the good of mankind points out its great duties. It is above all things to provide for the security, the quiet, and happy enjoyment of life, liberty, and property.
And that's the point is that the law will be brought up before you.
It's not trying to take people's property away from them. It's just Oregon that I'm aware of.
So sorry about the sound. We'll figure that out for these.
For the designers of our constitutional republic, the right to be secure in the possessions and the defense of property is a natural right, one that does not come from government, but comes from the nature of our existence, our creation. Remember what Samuel Adams said in 1772, among the natural rights of the colonists are these: first, a right to life; secondly, liberty; thirdly, to property, together with the right to support and defend them in the best manner they can. He says these are the evident branches of, rather than deductions from, the duty of self-preservation, commonly called the first law of nature. That third right, the right to property, is no less inherent right than the right to life, liberty, or defense. All these rights stem from the first law of nature, the duty of self-preservation. Our founders knew all too well that the greatest threat to liberty was not the rogue bandit or gang of thieves, but to whom the people voluntarily gave power only to see them abuse that trust to the violation of the rights of the people. This is the situation they found themselves in with the rates of assistance in 1760. A government whose sole purpose was to defend the liberties of the people had turned on that purpose and become the enemy of liberty. The Stamp Act became the symbol of this violation of the property rights of all British citizens. The colonists knew that the agents enforcing these laws were in violation of their duty to secure the rights of the people. To help us better understand the real issue, we can look to the document written some years later, where the people are expressing their grievances against their government over this violation of their rights. On February 27, 1776, Richard Henry Lee published the Westmoreland Resolves, a resolution of the people of Westmoreland and Leedstown regarding the violation of the people's rights by the enforcement of the Stamp Act. You'll remember Lee from our state sovereignty class as the author of the Lee Resolution of June 7, 1776, the document that established the states as sovereign governments independent from Great Britain. Lee was one of the first founders of the Committees of Correspondence. He served as a representative of the Virginia House of Burgesses and a delegate to the First Continental Congress, where he would author the Lee Resolution. Lee wrote in the Westmoreland Resolves, "As we know it to be the birthright privilege of every British subject and of the people of Virginia, as being such, founded on reason, law, and compact, that he cannot be legally tried but by his peers, and that he cannot be taxed but by consent of Parliament, in which he is represented by persons chosen by the people, and who themselves pay a part of the tax imposed on others." Lee continues and says, "As the Stamp Act does absolutely direct the property of the people to be taken from them without their consent expressed by their representatives, and as in many cases it deprives the British American subjects of his right to a trial by jury." We got to recognize the designers of our Constitution believed that a taxation of the people contrary to their liberty charters, contrary to their Constitution, was an unlawful taking of property. Every British citizen was guaranteed a security of their property and the requirement of the government to follow the proper laws of due process before they had the legal authority to take personal property. That due process was specifically a right to a trial by jury of their peers. Since the assessment and collection of these taxes occurred outside the proper boundaries of their Constitution, we must then also recognize that the enforcement of these laws of taxation and the collection of these unlawful taxes were most literally seen as criminal theft of the property by their government. Listen to how the Westmoreland Resolves talks about these acts. It says, "We do determine, at every hazard, and paying no regard to danger or to death, we will exert every faculty to prevent the execution of the said Stamp Act in any instance whatsoever within this colony, and every abandoned wretch who shall be so lost to virtue and public good as to wickedly contribute to the introduction or fixture of the Stamp Act in this colony, by using stamped paper or by any other means, we will, with the utmost expedition, convince all such profligates that immediate danger and disgrace shall attend their prostitute purpose." This is the history that drove the designers of our constitutional republic to codify the Fourth Amendment. It is this history that made it abundantly clear that a written declaration of the property rights of the people and the limited power of the government over those rights. This is the birth of our Fourth Amendment, the right of the people to be secure in their persons, houses, papers, and effects against unreasonable searches and seizures shall not be violated. No warrant shall issue but upon probable cause, supported by oath or affirmation, particularly describing the place to be searched and the persons or things to be seized. How did we get from a history so strongly moored to the property rights of the people to a present day where the property of the people is more controlled by government than by those who own it. I believe, as Samuel Adams asserts, that this decline in the exercise of our natural rights to property comes through the universal ignorance of the people in understanding the fundamental meaning of the term property. In our next class, James Madison will teach us what the people of his day understood as common knowledge regarding the definition of the word property.
One more. One more.
I'm gonna see about farther. My toes are frozen.
I'm frozen too. It's 5 minutes. 5 minutes. We can do
We're
it,
all
right?
frozen. But that leaves only one class.
So she's gonna do one.
In 1792, James Madison wrote an essay titled Property. In this essay, Madison attempts to explain not only the plain meaning of the term property, but the deeper and fuller meaning of this term demanded through the principles of natural law. Madison says of property, this term, in its particular application, means that dominion which one man claims and exercises over the external things of the world, in exclusion to every other individual. If asked to define property today, I believe that definition is the one most people would recite. What is property? It's my stuff. But Madison explains the true meaning of the word property is much deeper than that. He says, in its larger and juster meaning, it embraces everything to which a man may attach a value and have a right. Yes, property is your stuff, but not just your physical stuff. All stuff you value, all rights you possess. Madison explains further. In the former sense, a man's land, or merchandise, or money is called his property. In the latter sense, a man has a property in his opinions and the free communication of them. He has a property of particular value in his religious opinions, in the profession and practice dictated by them. Your right to freedom of religion is property. Your right to the exercise of that religion is property. Madison says he has a property very dear to him in the safety and liberty of his person. Your right to defend your life, your liberty, and property is property. Madison says he has an equal property in the free use of his faculties, the free choice of the objects on which to employ them. Now, Noah Webster defines the term faculties as the power of the mind or intellect, power of performing any action, peculiar skill derived from practice, natural virtue. James Madison says all of these things are your property. Now, the Fourth Amendment declares that the right of the people to be secure in their persons, houses, papers, and effects against unreasonable searches and seizures shall not be violated. Those terms, person, houses, paper, effects, are a list of every perceivable form of property that is to be owned by a person. In other words, as Madison said, everything to which a man may attach a value or have a right, everything that you can think, believe, use, possess, that is your property. And that property is to never be taken without proper application of due process. This fact is not an invention of the Fourth Amendment. It is a pre-established principle that predates our government and is established throughout history as a self-evident truth. The Fourth Amendment was written to establish this self-evident truth as a foundational principle of our constitutional republic, and it is written in plain English. There's no Latin terms, no complicated words, yet the Fourth Amendment might just be the most misinterpreted, abused, and disregarded principle in American society and government. Let's look at the text of the Fourth Amendment in light of the history we've just learned. The Fourth Amendment reads, the right of the people to be secure in their persons, houses, papers, and effects against unreasonable searches and seizures shall not be violated. And no warrant shall issue but based upon probable cause, supported by oath or affirmation, particularly describing the place to be searched and the persons or things to be seized. Most judges, lawyers, politicians, and professors will agree that the Fourth Amendment guarantees your right to be free from unreasonable searches and seizures. But they'll also agree that you are not free from all searches and seizures, only unreasonable ones. The debate and ultimate destruction of the principles of the Fourth Amendment all hinged upon the definition of this term, reasonable. The educated study the legal will try to explain to you that you cannot know exactly what reasonable means. The courts have gone so far as to develop their own definition of reasonable. Any of you who have ever had a criminal justice class or a class on the Fourth Amendment have probably heard the court's definition of reasonable. It says, the reasonableness standard, as the courts have defined, is what a reasonable person would find reasonable under reasonable circumstances.
God.
That is what we call, in the field of logic, circular reasoning, using a term to define that term. But it's under this circular reasoning that the right to be secure in our property is whittled away. The judges, lawyers, politicians, and professors claim that this is the best they can do because there is no known definition of unreasonable in the Fourth Amendment. But that assertion is simply not true. The Fourth Amendment does not end after the words shall not be violated. There's an entire list of qualifiers that follows, providing the exact definition of reasonable search and seizure. Once again, it is not the failing of the text that creates confusion. It is the government defining the terms of their own power that establishes confusion so that people can be manipulated into allowing those in power to expand their own power. The right of the people to be secure in their persons, houses, papers, and effects against unreasonable searches and seizures shall not be violated, comma. And no warrant shall issue, but based upon probable cause, supported by oath or affirmation, particularly describing the place to be searched and the persons or things to be seized. The Fourth Amendment establishes the precise criteria of a reasonable search and seizure. The reasonable search and seizure is one where there is a warrant that is based upon probable cause, supported by oath or affirmation, particularly describing the place to be searched and the persons or things to be seized. Every other search and seizure is an unreasonable search and seizure. Within this text is the very important legal term. It's often overlooked because it's not the first word you would think of when identifying the most important word. But it is vital to the proper understanding of this text nonetheless. That word is and. The use of the word and in the list, warrants based upon probable cause, supported by oath or affirmation, particularly describing the place to be searched and the persons or things to be seized, means that all 5 elements must be present at the same time for the search and seizure to be reasonable. The word is and, not or. So all 5 must be there at the same time. Not 3 out of 5, not 4 out of 5, not 4.5 out of 5. All 5 must be there, or the search and seizure is unreasonable and is therefore prohibited by the term shall not. In our last class, we'll talk about the exceptions to your right to be secure in your property as established by the Fourth Amendment.
Wants to cut it down, skip it off.
On the last video, right, you're talking about stand up?
Yeah.
Did they cover writs of assistance?
I think so. Yeah. You look at the old stamp back, you could buy anything that was in the stamp.
You get the stamp.
Yeah.
Well, because the stand back is not inexpensive, it's the writs of assistance that's the problem. I just want to make sure, because, you know.
Yeah, we went through that.
Okay, one more.
Okay, one more.
Don't people have to be up early to go? Yeah, you have to be up still.
If anybody needs to leave, you can. We're gonna do this last one just so we completed.
We're all gonna help stack chairs. It'll go quick.
5 minutes. Get up and get some food while you're listening to it.
If the people are not free from all searches and seizures, then there must be exceptions to the right of property. What are those exceptions? And do we know them, or do we need the Supreme Court to define them for us? When we look at the Fourth Amendment, it becomes clear that there is only one exception to your right to be secure in all your property. That one exception requires 5 elements to be present all at the same time. The only time your property is subject to search and seizure is when there is a warrant based upon probable cause, supported by oath or affirmation, particularly describing the place to be searched and the persons or things to be seized. If those 5 things are not present, then your property rights are being violated. Can you find any other exceptions written within the Fourth Amendment to your right to be secure in your property? Does the Fourth Amendment read the right of the people to be secure in their persons, houses, papers, and effects against unreasonable searches and seizures shall not be violated. No warrant shall issue but based upon probable cause, supported by oath or affirmation, particularly describing the place to be searched and the persons or things to be seized, except in the case of national security, or except in the necessity to enforce the law, or except in the case of exigent circumstances, or except when it's just too inconvenient. You will find none of these exceptions within the Fourth Amendment, and yet those in government assert that each and every one of those exceptions exists. How is that so? Because the people have allowed those in government to define the limits of their own power. So those in power define those limits as limited only by their need, necessity, and convenience. Every added exception to your right to property is one devised by those in government, by a law, by executive order, by regulation, or court opinion, to expand government power beyond its defined limits to decrease the liberty and the rights of the people. I want you to think about something for a second. If we have been teaching this history and the proper application of the Constitution and the Fourth Amendment for the last 150 years, how much different would life be in America? Would the people tolerate the Patriot Act, the NDAA power of indefinite detention, the government reading our emails, text messages, or listening to our phone conversations? Would the people simply ignore the cameras on the roads documenting our passengers and our travel? How would the federal government ever get away with the crime upon liberty they called civil asset forfeiture? If this course was required learning for all Americans, would Americans allow the federal government to classify a 100-mile border around the United States as a constitution-free zone, where Border Patrol agents are taught they need no warrants and no probable cause to search and seize Americans? If this course was required learning for all Americans, would Americans allow the federal government to classify the seas and oceans within and beyond American territory as constitution-free zones, where American Coast Guard agents are taught they don't need warrants, probable cause, or even permission to board American vessels and search and seize to their heart's content? What has happened to liberty in the last 250 years? We have allowed our fear to trump our liberty. Our founders worked very hard to create a federal government that would be locked in a limited and defined box. We, their descendants, have turned around and handed the government the keys. Exigent circumstances, roadside checkpoints, national security, officer safety are expansions of government power, written by government-paid lawyers, allowed by government-paid judges, and used by government-paid agents, all justified by safety, security, law enforcement, or the war on drugs. We have succumbed to the fear factor, believing trading liberty to keep us safe is the primary role of government. No, it's not. The primary role of government is not national security. It is, as the Constitution clearly mandates, liberty security, as in to preserve the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity. But remember, necessity is the plea for every infringement of human freedom. It is the argument of tyrants, it is the creed of slaves. No truer words were ever penned by William Pitt. However, here we are today, accepting the government's argument of necessity. And out of ignorance and arrogance, fueled by fear, we do not see they are revealing themselves to be tyrants, and we are allowing ourselves to be slaves. Simple grammar, a little history, and the entire Fourth Amendment becomes abundantly clear.
Yes. Amen.
Good stuff. All right, thank you guys for hanging with that. I really believe that the more we keep learning together, the less we're going to be able to hand our rights away, because we're going to know what they are. We're not going to take surrender them. So I do think this is important. So thanks for hanging with that. Tomorrow we'll be at Stuffy's at 8 a.m. Next week we're going to have somebody in Idaho. We're going to Zoom him in, and he's going to do just a 1-hour course for us on the ham radio. It's everything you forget from the test, everything you didn't understand about the test, and we'll help people just understand how to use their radio. So he's going to be having that up, and then we'll get on the Toastmasters maybe for the following week. I think that would be good. And we'll post a calendar. We'll get that posted on our website, peoplesrightswashington.org. We'll put it in a week so you guys can see, and you can pick and nights you wanna come, you know, based on if it's something you're interested in. Julie.
Trina's sign up and we can exchange seed exchange next week and afterwards.
Oh, what exchange?
The seed exchange, you know, excess and service.
If you have excess seeds, heirloom seeds only, so we probably
Oh,
don't.
no.
Oh, any seed. Bring extra seeds next week if you want to do a seed exchange. Get your onions and garlic in. Garlic outside in the ground right now with plenty of mulch. Onions in the plastic containers.
Or inside. I didn't even start inside.
Onions could be inside too. I'll do that so I can watch it and water it as it needs to be. Seed exchange next week. What else did we just say about next week? Trina. So Trina wants to do some type of physical activity with our group. So we don't know what it's going to look like. It might be hikes throughout the summertime, in the winter, something physical. So there's a sign-up sheet if you want to be a part of that. We'll post about it as well. And then we'll just have activities throughout the week. So if people want to come, get out of the house, just get some exercise together. So we'll get that going. If you have any ideas on another group that I didn't name that you want to head up, let us know what they are and let's head them up. Because you have the network of people we can throw at you and kind of get everybody connecting with somebody that has an interest to them. Anything else? Anything for Calix that needs to be announced other than as far as right early? See you guys in a few hours. Thank you, Vicki. Okay. Is that it? Okay. All right. We'll close out. So, Vicki, you close us out in prayer.
Thank you, Jesus, that you are the way maker. You are the one that's making the way for us, Father God. And we depend on you, we count on you, and we're looking forward to you. You're not stressed. You're not surprised at what's going on. You're in perfect peace. And so we're going to choose to be in perfect peace too. And we're going to look at you, and we're going to know that you're going to do something supernatural. Because you don't work in the natural, you are a supernatural God. So you're working it out in Jesus' name. If you guys want something that'll bless your heart, Psalm 108, 12 and 13. That's what I'm counting on.
I don't know.
Help stack chairs, help stacking.
Just a second, I gotta turn off.